Everyone thinks reform is a good idea. Opponents made their voices heard and stood on the sidelines of that rally. More than 100 people held their own protest signs high for all to see. The group says healthcare reform will only make matters worse. Opponents say relying on the free market and giving consumers more choices is the only solution. They say we need less government.
Government imposes mandates on insurance companies as to what they must put in their programs, and we need to open those things up and allow consumers to...
Against it held press conferences in Bismarck and Fargo on Thursday. The North Dakota Campaign for Responsible Health Reform say a public option is basically creating a new system instead of reforming the system we already have. The group supports health savings accounts and tax deductibles for employees who purchase health insurance.
We need government to get out of the way rather than create new structures and hurdles for people to get health care. There's no reason to have laws in place that basically complicate the system more than it really needs to be.
In the coming weeks, the campaign will host meetings with individuals and employers in various cities across the state.
And a word from those against health care reform that includes that public option. The North Dakota Campaign for Responsible Health Reform believes in protecting employer-sponsored health insurance and decreasing the cost of health care. Supporters say a government-run insurance option will get lower rates and in turn push out private insurance.
When the government creates a plan, they also create the rules that regulate the private insurance. And so it's not a leap to say that they will create regulation that will support and prop up their plan.
The campaign is a grassroots effort of small businesses, healthcare providers, and citizens. You can learn more at Responsible Health Reform.
For those against a government-run healthcare option, the North Dakota Campaign for Responsible Healthcare Reform believes in protecting employer-sponsored health insurance and decreasing the costs of healthcare. Supporters say a public option will get lower rates and, in turn, push out private insurance because they say government will be making the rules.
The regulation will be such that only their plan can meet the regulation at a cost-effective and efficient way, relatively speaking, and it will just force the private insurance out of business by attrition.
The campaign is a grassroots effort of small businesses, healthcare providers, and citizens. You can learn more at responsiblehealthreform.org.
Healthcare. Dozens gather to express concerns at a town hall meeting tonight in Bismarck. Many are concerned that current proposals in Congress fail to reduce healthcare costs. Dustin Gaverlo with the North Dakota Taxpayers Association says he's more optimistic now, though, that Congress will tear up current legislation and start over.
The best outcome is that these bills simply disintegrate on their own, and we can start over and talk about what actual reform would look like.
The Campaign for Health Reform sponsored the event. They're part of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which represents 3 million businesses.
North Dakota Campaign for Responsible Health Reform and local employer groups met at Peacock Alley Bar and Grill. For one group, the president said what they wanted to hear, and for the other group, not so much.
He's ignoring the vast majority of Americans who are very disappointed and angry about the direction that things are going with the planned takeovers of the healthcare industry and overthrowing the entire healthcare system in the name of helping 6-7% of the population and not actually addressing the cost issues for everybody.
A North Dakota employer group is responding to the president's call to get health care reform off of life support. The Campaign for Responsible Health Care Reform is touring the state, responding to the State of the Union address. They're concerned about the cost of reform, the public health care plan, and the ability to make health care more affordable. In his speech, the president says he's reaching out to Republicans and Democrats to find a solution to the problem.
Congress just needs to go back to the drawing board on this issue. The two chambers are just completely fractured. They've got 3 different factions in the House just among the Democrats. They can't agree on anything.
The Campaign for Responsible Health Care Reform is sponsored by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce.
The healthcare summit got pretty heated yesterday, but was it successful? Today, state healthcare reform groups reacted to the summit. Amanda Tetlak is here to tell us what they thought. Amanda?
Alan, the response is almost as partisan as members of Congress. One group saying it was a disaster, while the other saying progress was made. The Campaign for Responsible Health Reform describes the summit as a bad Thanksgiving dinner that failed miserably.
Republican Democratic leaders have now reached a phase where they aren't talking at each other anymore. They're talking past each other and getting nothing done in the process. They held a 7-hour conference, and it was all a bunch of speeches and egos.
The campaign says Congress just needs to start over and begin with an incremental approach because baby steps will be effective. And if lawmakers won't do that, the bill may as well just die.
If they're not going to start over and start from scratch and actually talk about real reforms, yes, it should just go away.
But others say the summit was actually quite campaign for responsible health reform believes most Americans don't like where the debate is going, and Congress won't actually be able to work together until the voters speak in November. The White House says President Obama will announce his plans next week for a way forward on legislation after Obama officials and Democratic leaders hold a few days
opportunity. That's what one group says about President Obama's health care summit yesterday. Supporters of the Campaign for Responsible Health Reform say though both sides of the aisle came together, nothing appears to have been accomplished. Dustin Gaverlow with the North Dakota Taxpayers Association says the forum was like a bad Thanksgiving dinner. He says leaders from both parties no longer talk to each other, but past each other.
This thing is just going to fade out, and the Democrats just don't know when to give up. It seems that they don't have the numbers to push the votes. Even Senator Conrad said that it looks like it's a dead bill, and so it looks like some of their members understand where this is going, but their leadership does not.
Gaverlow says it appears Democrats intend to stand by the health care bill through Easter, which would add up to about 9 months of time debating on this one issue. Says other issues like the economy deserve the attention of Congress. He's